because we saw so much bias in the studies, our systematic review offered 6 recommendations for future research. I'll just tick them off. First off, we asked the researchers to reconsider the value of acute testing because it really doesn't reflect long-term effects, and a lot of those studies, over half, were for acute effects, meaning what happens in the next 5 or 10 minutes or the next hour. The next thing we asked is very technical, and that is we asked for better methodology for blinding. Blinding is a technique we use in research trials so that the people who administer the tests or the people that look at the data don't know which group of people they're looking at. Was this the e-cigarette users, or was this the control group, the people who were still smoking? Because personal bias can creep in if you have a position already. So we asked for, please, let's get better data analysis with blinding. We called for better recruiting practices so that the participants are actually representative of people who smoke. As I mentioned before, many of the studies focused very heavily or exclusively on men. That's not all people who are smoking. Also, there was a tendency in several studies to use young students simply because they were available to their research unit. Okay, and of course, the next one was we asked that people check their manuscripts for data discrepancies. In other words, one place here you said the data was significant, and the next place over here you said it was not, or vice versa. We need to have the authors themselves plus the peer reviewers go through and say, is there any places where the data does not match up? We need to know that. And ultimately, we recommended that the discussions in these papers differentiate between statistical significance and actual clinical relevance. So, for example, in a test where the heartbeat after e-cigarette use went up 3 beats a minute, based on statistics, that's statistically significant. But you talk to a clinician and 3 heartbeats per minute change, it has no clinical relevance whatsoever. So by these studies relying on p-values, clinical significance, they're really distorting the picture because they're not looking at what's clinically important, what's clinically relevant. P-values only are an estimate of possible chance findings. They don't talk about what the findings actually mean. And finally, we respectfully ask that the authors of studies go through, they actually have a protocol, which is a plan of how they're going to do the research. We want to do this so that it's very transparent what they plan to do, if there's any differences in what they did. It's hard to believe, but 13 of the 25 studies did not have a protocol or did not publish a protocol. So how can we tell if they're spinning the data? Maybe they intended at first to look at heart rate, and then when they find that there's no difference in heart rate, suddenly that's no longer the primary thing that they're looking at, the primary outcome, suddenly it becomes a secondary outcome. Also, sometimes whole tests or whole areas are dropped. Sometimes they change who they're going to recruit. We really would like to see every last study have a published protocol. So those are the 6 things we recommended. It's quite a lot. Some of it's very technical, but this is what we need to start cleaning up the research in our field so that it works properly, yields low amounts of bias so that we can have confidence in the findings.